love. The utter dedication that drives the relentlessness that has kept Irontomb in check for millions of cycles. And it is what keeps me on the path of trying my hardest to understand this labyrinth of lore that Hoyoverse has constructed for us. Because this story has been 10 months of complicated paths intertwining with character motivations and hidden agendas, all coming to a head in this one patch. Oh yeah, 3.7 was a yap fest, but it also had a healthy dose of action and aura farming, all culminating into one of the most disappointing, anticlimactic, and unsatisfying endings that I have ever experienced. Until I noticed something that I'll tell you all at the very end. Because this story has been the subject of countless theories, and I've had more than my fair share proven right. But before we go into theorizing, as always, we gotta break down what we just experienced. So without further ado, this is the final battle of Amphorius explained. Okay. So as you all know so well, the way I'll be retelling this story is not in the way that Hoyo tells it. Because Hoyo likes to jump around and swap perspectives, which makes an already complicated story that much more confusing. So I'll be rearranging the events into a chronological order that makes more sense. Alright. So let's set the stage. The 33,550,338th cycle is about to begin, with the Chrysosairs becoming the new Titans. Once again, our Trailblazer finds themselves in ID's Elysiae faced with Dan Hung, the new Georios, March 7th, the new Orynyx, and Cyrene, who has now reached the final stage of evolution as Demiurge. But here is where we reach a strange little issue, because it's gonna be a while before our backup arrives. So we have to wait for probably around 1,000 years or so for the Express crew to chronocognitive anchor their way down to Amphorius. Remember the whole time dilation, few minutes is 1,000 years thing? Yeah, that's the reason why the Trailblazer and Dan Hung had to sleep for 1,000 years, and March just kinda used time to find when the Express crew arrived and showed up there directly. So after a few words of encouragement and being reminded that poor Phainon got replaced by us being Kefili and he won't be a part of the cycle at all, we enter the cycles one last time, and Cyrene shows us her true identity as we pass the time. Meanwhile, the Shanjo is having a political dispute that I'll have to cover in another video, and Herta explains the attack plan to, well, Sunday and Black Swan. That being, the Express crew plus Black Swan has to locate their now Titan companions and find a way to attack Irontomb from within Amphorius, while our two geniuses ambush the Demiurge Matrix to uncover any secrets left behind by Zandar. While of course the Cosmic Alliance of the Shanjo, IPC, and Screwlum's forces do what they can from the outside. And with that, Herta's fourth mirror teleports the crew in, and Himiko touches base with our allies one last time where... Okay, I want to take the moment to explain how corrupt the IPC is. I need for you to understand this. The entire universe is on the brink of collapse, and they are worried about a Lord Ravager that makes Antimatter Legion grunts. That's what Archforger does. But they also said that Irontomb can infect organic life now. Whoa! But it's only non-lethal, and they have a vaccine for that they can sell everyone to help them heal from nerve damage. But not only is that horrible, as it is, but the universe is about to die. What good is a vaccine when everyone is vaporized? I hate this faction. I hate this faction so much. They are just the worst. Anyway, back to the original script. But close behind we have the family, because poor Robin had to pull major strings just to get Asdani and Tuners to help out. And with that unsettling lack of support, the crew enters Amphorius, where they are quite fittingly greeted by our Time Titan, who has now mastered her abilities and uses them to prank her two superiors by masquerading as Evernight, which fails because, well, is him and Himiko knows her too well, but it got poor Black Swan because she's still stun-locked by trauma. That aside, March tells everyone that the Trailblazer as Kefili foretold of this date being the one that would bring about the new prophecy and bring about the new tomorrow for the world, a complicated way of saying that we will awaken and fight Irontomb. And here is where the story branches into two different paths, both reaching the same conclusion. Because the Express crew from here just retreats to Herta's space station, so let's shift our focus to Herta and Screwlum's mission, along with Cyrene telling us the story of her existence. Because this is where things get really spicy. So, to put things as simple as possible, I'm not going to jump around, I'll just be using both perspectives to more accurately explain what Cyrene is. because it turns out that I was right. She is a stellaron and the 13th Titan and a child of Nosriva all at once. But how did she come to be? Well, this goes back all the way back to when Zandar found the scepter. You see, the scepter, even after being abandoned by Nous, still ran its extrapolations with the data flowing into the Demiurge matrix. But Zandar's goal was to create a headless giant that would seek out Nous, and he also wanted to develop the scepter into a strong body, so he had to nurture it without it gaining a consciousness, and still having a head without it having a brain inside of it. And Zandar, being the control freak that he is, can't have the scepter having its own brain, so he blew it up with a stellaron. But here is where he messed up, because the stellaron survived and so did the Demiurge, with the two becoming one and falling into a deep slumber, a hibernation it woke up from with the start of the eternal recurrence. And Cyrene, after erasing herself from time, would find her way here, storing the memories of each cycle in the Demiurge matrix and speaking aloud as she did so. Little did she know that she was speaking to a seed of memory, a stellaron that reacted to her wish and tethered itself to the Remembrance. And though at the time it was weak and couldn't speak, as time went on and more Cyrenes offered up their memories, the seed grew into a bud, mimicking the image of a fairy that it associated with Cyrene. An image that would later develop into Cyrene herself, because every Cyrene would have faith that the next one would bring about a new page, and with that new page bringing about a blank space. And sensing this desire, the stellaron concluded that a new Cyrene was a blank space. So it took up the goal of becoming Cyrene so that they could be a blank space as well, thus fulfilling the wish. Remember, stellarons are incredibly extreme when it comes to fulfilling wishes. And the stellaron got good at becoming Cyrene. So much so that she became an adult Cyrene, having the body that Philia 093 desired but never grew into. And thus the pain and hatred that Lygus sowed into the world was nurtured by lament. Lament for the fact that the world had no love, bringing about a demiurge that could feel emotions and empathy. And this was Zandar's mistake. He underestimated the power of remembrance, because with the body being the id and Cyrene serving as the superego checking the hatred of the id, Demiurge became the ego that it was meant to be, thus possessing a consciousness of its own, which Philia 093 named after her pen name Cyrene and gave her the As I Have Written book, asking her to look after the deliverer. And here is where we reach the point of the story where we enter the picture. And this is how the Demiurge entered the cycles and got memory wiped and reverted back to Mem. And the reason why Mem found us instantly is because she resonated with the stellaron inside of us, because she also is kind of a stellaron. So that is how the Cyrene ripples of past reverie we know came to be. Now, as Cyrene told us this, Herta was coming to this conclusion with Screwlum and Zandar, who decapitated himself, restricting all access to the exomyth in the process, for some reason. He can still talk, however, of course, because nothing can stop Lygus from yapping, and he tells them that the death of Nous is the fourth instant that was foretold by Nous that will happen regardless of anything, which ended up being a lie. But this didn't stop Herta, who once again tasked herself with proving Droidhead wrong. Remember, this is the second time she's doing this. The first time was the solitary waves theory. So she enacts her backup plan, and they go to what I'm going to call the Irontomb egg. And here is where the unrivaled Madame Herta steals the show of this patch, because this is where she, for the first time since the fall of Rupert, summons other geniuses from across the universe to converse with them in a meeting. And out of 8, 4 answer: Ron May, Akka, Dr. Primitive, and Polka Kakamond. And leaving the interactions of these guys for another day, because these guys are fascinating in their own right, Herta has one simple request: let her cook. Because she knew that her plan would definitely put her on Polka's radar if she wasn't already, because as we saw in the Exotale Scene 8 trailer, her plan is to take control of the scepter to stop the destruction equation, and if we the Trailblazer fail to defeat Irontomb from within, she will become Hertatomb III and fuse herself with the scepter with self-coronation. The same self-coronation that Rupert did, which is the worst ending that Capcom mentioned, becoming the very thing that Polka rid the universe of years ago. But here is the strange part that I think Herta has got wrong. She wants to change the anchor point of Nous's instant to change the future. But that's not how Nous works. Nous just calculates the future. Nous doesn't make the futures happen. Hence Akka remarking that she is confusing cause with effect. Nous is the effect, not the cause. The universe dying is why Nous's instants happen, not the other way around. But that aside, quite predictably Polka says that she's on her way and Herta just signed her own death warrant, but Zandar, of all people, seeing that Herta wants to strike at the erudition by disproving Nous, decides to protect her out of curiosity by ordering all of the other Zandars to give everything they got to make sure that Herta gets her plan off. And with that, the meeting ends. And Ranmei hangs up having absolutely no doubt in the world that Herta will survive. And here marks the beginning of our battle with Irontomb, because in the meantime, the main three track down all other Titans and awoke Castellana in a sequence of events that took way too long, and we fight Irontomb. And we lose. But just as Herta is about to rubert herself in self-coronation, Nous cast their gaze on us. So instead of proceeding, Herta stops the process and acts as our translator for Nous. And here is why we needed to be in Amphorius, because otherwise Herta would have proceeded with self-coronation and the bad ending happens. But we're here now, so Herta acts as our translator and stops the self-coronation. And remember when I said that I wasn't sure if Aeons speak human languages? Well, Aha might, but Nous definitely doesn't. So Herta, since she was inside of Nous's head at the time, acted as our translator, and Nous calls us Fateless One and says a bunch of other things that I'll have to address in other videos because that's a whole rabbit hole by itself. Then tweaks out, screams Akivili, and then leaves. And Herta returns to tell us that all isn't lost and that Nous is still extrapolating, which is good, because like I said previously, Nous doesn't know the future, and they are constantly calculating it. So once Nous finds an answer for a definitive future, they stop calculating and the universe is cooked. So if Nous is still thinking, there are still possibilities that remain and the universe has a chance at survival. So we wake up in the path space, because this is where we go when the Aeons look at us, and Cyrene tells us that she knows a way to contain Irontomb and save everyone, because she can create a miniature version of the Eden of Blessed Insight, collecting all of the memories of everyone and everything in the moment before its destruction, so that they can all be resurrected afterwards. But of course, we weren't going to let her do this alone, so we follow her to aid in the memory collection process, where we encounter a suppressed memory of Kafka telling us everything that we are currently doing. So Elio even knew that this would happen. And Himiko shows up for some reason, and so these two are connected in some way. I know a lot of you have your suspicions about that. But after this, Cyrene has one last meeting with Philia 093, and we talk to another us, asking us why we trailblaze, who I have a hunch is Akivili, but I have no real clue, so back on topic. No, wait, hold on, Nova. Before we move on from this is why Pom Pom showed up to us, because they said themselves that Akivili had to make the same choice. So now, not only is Pom Pom terrifyingly old and witnessed the ascension of Akivili, but now we know why Akivili trailblazes, to see the end. And we give a really stupid sounding answer in response too. We trailblaze because we are already here, so we might as well keep going. I don't know, that just doesn't seem very profound at all. But this is all insinuating that we are Akivili in some way, because also considering that Nous themselves said that we have met countless times. So I am relatively sure that we're Akivili. Oh, alright, now we can move on. Because with everything recreated and Cyrene coming into her full power as the Demiurge, it is time for round 2 with Irontomb, where the ridiculous headless giant is defeated by, well, its head, bringing everyone back to life and making this cute little Hello World coding reference. Also revealing that Nous at no point stopped calculating, meaning that Zandar was never right. Nous isn't omniscient, and still isn't, nor is Irontomb the 4th instant. Because as the universe struggles to exist, Nous has to keep recalculating things. So Nous defeated Zandar by doing absolutely nothing, leaving Lygus so depressed that he ends himself again. But the funny part here is that he's not even gone. Because get this, as the memories were being brought back to life, Herta met with Cyrene and we get this massive info dump. Because not only did Herta explain how Nous thinks, but she also figured out how Fuli works. Turns out, Fuli hasn't ascended yet. But the moment in which they do ascend is at the end of time, and so their ascension is reflected through time, making it so that they exist at all points of history at once without even being there. And every pure child of Anasrava has the potential to become Fuli, which is the subject of my next video. I got a huge theory about that one, but point is, Cyrene has two options. One where she leaves Amphorius entirely and has a shot at becoming a real Memo Sprite, with the downside of Irontomb probably returning. And the second being her staying in Amphorius and binding herself to the past forever while preserving all memories of Amphorius, but being eternally stuck within it. And without a shred of hesitation and with nothing but love in her heart, our flower of memory copies Cyrene one last time and offers herself up to remain in the past, stopping Irontomb and preserving the memories of the world she loves. Even Lygus. Unfortunately, yes, everyone that was ever in the cycles is written in her book, and that means if our Chrysosairs aren't gone, neither is Lygus. Oh, and did I mention that this is also an agonizing process for Cyrene? Because that means her at the beginning of the As I Have Written book returning to her fairy form and forgetting everything, remembering everything, and then forgetting everything again. Yay, more pain and suffering for the people who have only known pain and suffering. And that is where the story ends. In the epilogue, Herta tells us that she is currently working on a way to bring the Amphorius people back to life, but that's it. Amphorius is over. Or so I thought. Because in a fit of disbelief at how horrible and unsatisfying this ending was, I checked the Trailblazing experience to see this. Guys, this ain't over. That is a fat to be continued that they just snuck over here after rolling the credits on us. They Pentaconied us again. So Amphorius isn't over. Every other story says completed, but this one has question marks. And here I was about to rip this ending to shreds because I hate this as an ending, but if there is still more to come, then maybe, just maybe, we'll get a more satisfying ending to this saga of a story. Because everything from the start up until this point was peak. But oh boy, if this is the end, then we're gonna have some problems. I did not cover this story for 10 months just for it to end and everyone is still trapped in a time loop. I do not even want to entertain that thought. But at the very least, Irontomb is gone and Nanook is short a Lord Ravager. Because this is the final battle of Amphorius. Explained. There is still so much we have to talk about. We learned so much about the Aeons and how they work that I can think of so many things to say in regards to Fuli, but you guys are gonna have to wait until next video or join my Discord where I will probably be talking about it there, because I can't wait and I love to bounce my ideas off of you guys to make sure that I'm not going too far off the deep end. Because now that the recap is out of the way and we are all on the same page, we can get into some absolutely insane topics. I was on vacation for a week and it is good to be back. What do you guys think? Be sure to let me know and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.